Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, we'll discuss Tuesday's primary election results and what those results mean for November's general election. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Rachel Langang of the Arizona Capital Times, Jeremy Duda of the Arizona Capital Times, and Mike Sunnix of the Phoenix Business Journal. Tuesday's Arizona primary election is pretty much in the books, except for a few very tight races that are still too close to call. We'll get to each individual race here kind of in detail. But Rachel, as far as biggest surprise of Tuesday's election, what do you think?
I think there really weren't that many surprises. There were some that I thought might, go one way or another, but pretty much what was expected based on, polling, who spent the most money went according to plan. The one that I was a little surprised by is how close Helen Purcell's race is with Aaron Flannery, just because he's not necessarily a known commodity and she's been around forever. So that one's still a little too close to call, but that one was a big surprise for me.
What about you, Jeremy? Any surprises of note?
Probably the Legislative District 18 Senate race. You had Jeff Dial, an incumbent, running against Frank Schmuck, who'd really been running kind of a one-issue campaign on whether he was being honest about his status as a veteran, as his military service, just railing against this for months and months and months. Dial had really kind of kept a low profile and didn't really respond until a day or two before the election, and but I think we all expected him to kind of prevail still. Election night rolls around, first results come in, lo and behold, Schmuck's in the lead, and it's over. Dial's gone.
Chandler, Ahwatukee area there, and Schmuck is more conservative than Dial, is he not?
It's hard to say. I mean, he hasn't really run on a lot of specific issues. I think in 2008 he ran before, and he ran as kind of one of the conservatives. He lost his primary. He hasn't really run so much as an issue-based campaign so far. I think there's definitely perception, especially because Dial is one of kind of the classic moderates over there. He's viewed as kind of one of the dominant figures in the moderate Republican faction. So probably more conservative than that, nonetheless.
Big surprise for you?
It wasn't much a surprise, but some of the interesting outcomes was Christine Jones and how she shook up and possibly is going to win that Republican primary to succeed Matt Salmon. When Salmon said he wasn't going to run again, everybody got behind, he and everybody else kind of got behind Andy Biggs. And then Don Stapley and Justin Olson got in the race. And then Christine Jones, who had ran unsuccessfully for governor, former GoDaddy executive, got in there, put a lot of money in. I think it was, $1.7 million of her own money. Had really good campaign ads, really shook up that race, and looks like she's going to win. The other thing was the Kelly Ward-McCain race, was whether the Trump folks were going to turn out against McCain. They didn't.
And let's get to that one. Rachel, we'll start with you in this one. John McCain defeats Kelly Ward. I don't think that was too much of a surprise. What about the margin of victory, though? Was it a little closer than maybe some expected, or pretty much as expected?
For me, I think it was as expected. I know Jeremy maybe has some different predictions on that. He was paying more attention than I was to that one. But she was always a Tea Party candidate, and there still is a lot of people, still are a lot of people in the establishment Republican camp. That's why it's the establishment. So not too surprising for me. It seemed like it was about where I expected it.
What do you think, Jeremy?
I thought the McCain's margin of victory was kind of lackluster. I mean, considering, Kelly Ward was never really taken seriously as a challenger. Last year, the conservatives who've been, nipping at McCain's heels for years, they wanted David Schweikert, they wanted Matt Salmon, they wanted kind of a reprise. It was kind of like in 2010. They got the candidate they wanted in J.D. Hayworth, former congressman, strong record. They didn't get any of that. They got Kelly Ward, who all these national conservative groups, the people who would spend millions and millions if they thought they actually could get rid of John McCain. Every one of them sat this out. At the very end, she had some super PAC money come in, but she just got bombarded with these negative ads. But still, McCain only won by 12 points. You look back to 2010, 24-point victory over Hayworth. This year, 12 points.
How does he trounce Hayworth and come so close against Kelly Ward?
He had a huge early vote lead. He did well here. He had a big early vote lead. Everybody called it right away. It was over with. And then she seems to have gained on people that actually went to the polls, and voted the day of the election. He killed her with those ads that showed her next to Bernie Sanders and Raul Grijalva, which a lot of folks down here in Phoenix don't know who Kelly Ward is, and she didn't have the money to respond with ads. But still, she's very good. When I went to the Trump rally, we'll talk about that later, when somebody mentioned John McCain, everybody booed. Booed as much as they booed Hillary Clinton. So there is that wing out there, but I still don't think those people that were at that Trump rally were going to vote for the Donald in November turned out in any primaries, it seemed, for this because they're not on the ticket.
Now, to be fair, in 2010, that race against Hayworth was on paper a much stronger candidate, but McCain had so much more money than he had this year. He had all this millions of dollars left over from his presidential, and he just carpet bombed Hayworth into oblivion. I think it was kind of a cathartic experience for him. But this year, he mostly just ignored Ward. He had a super PAC spending
and he could have
against
been
her.
maybe holding on a little bit to save the resources for Ann Kirkpatrick.
Sure, this is a new experience for McCain. He has a strong challenger in the general election. He has never had that in a Senate race in Arizona.
All right. The one thing he needs to overcome is just fatigue with incumbents. It's not about his age, it's that he's been there for so long, and Kirkpatrick and the Democrats will start pointing out, well, what have you exactly done? And that'll be the key to McCain's reelection.
And they'll be pouring in a lot of money as well. And this is like Jeremy mentioned, this is a really good challenger. McCain is treating it like it's a threat because it is a threat. And you'll see a lot of the national groups, national Democratic groups start, really ramping up here. And you'll see GOP responses as well.
All right, you mentioned Christine Jones in Congressional District 5. She still has a slight lead over Andy Biggs. At this point, it would be kind of a surprise if Biggs came back. But again, a lot of folks think it's kind of a surprise that Christine Jones. I mean, what happened to the anointment? I mean, he was anointed by Matt Salmon, and boom, nothing. He's not going to win.
We've seen this happen before in politics, where the anointed one doesn't run an aggressive campaign as a challenger. She put a lot of money into the race, a lot of her own money. A lot of money at the end. She ran really effective ads. She was the only woman in the race. She's an evangelical Christian. The three other folks, Olson, Stapley, and Biggs, are all Mormons. And I think those differences worked well for her. She played up her business experience. And Andy Biggs is well known at the Capitol. He's well known in political circles. He's probably well known in Gilbert, where he represents the rest of that district. I don't know how well known he is, and they might have overestimated his name ID and his gravitas within the whole district.
You got 30% winning, Jeremy, which means 70% didn't vote for the winner. Does that mean in 2 years, if Christine Jones hangs on here, she's going to face another challenge?
I think she'll probably face a challenge in her first reelect. I mean, you look at the raw numbers here. She spent $2 million, like about 1.9, I think, out of her own pocket, and she was winning by 578 votes, even though she spent more money than the entire rest of the field, plus their super PACs combined. 570-something votes, $2 million out of pocket. That is razor thin.
And advertising played a big role in that race, did it not? I mean, she had some pretty effective campaign
She did.
ads.
Those were some really great ads. Whoever did them, fantastic job. I mean, they really spoke to who she was compared to the others. Where I think there was one where there were cardboard cutouts of typical-looking politicians, and she was like, I'm not like these guys. And that sort of thing really works, especially this year, as we've talked about many times. This is Outsiders Year. She really proved that she was the outsider.
Congratulations. Please, yes.
I think one of the most fascinating things is, as Rachel mentioned, she went on the outsider message. Same thing she did 2 years ago. It didn't work out as well, but Andy Biggs, for all the years he's been at the Capitol, has been kind of a quintessential outsider. He's always fighting with his own party as much as he was fighting with the Democrats. If every Republican in the Senate voted one way and one voted the other way, it was generally going to be Biggs. Christine Jones managed to turn him into the establishment candidate very early. He had Salmon's endorsement. He came as the kind of, as you said, the anointed successor. She made Andy Biggs the establishment, which was, I think, amusing to those of us who covered him for years at the Capitol, but it worked. It was very effective.
To Jeremy's point, the three guys, the three LDS members, divided the vote. She had 23,000 votes. I think Biggs had 22,500, and then Stapley and Olson had 16 and 15,000. So those third and fourth place did pretty well. And so if you had them Biggs just against Jones, you probably would have had a much better chance of winning.
Congressional District 1, Paul Badbu wins and wins big. Were you surprised by the margin of victory here?
Not really. I think the writing had been on the wall for this one for a while. Everyone from day one had trained their fire on Badbu as the obvious front runner, despite a lot of the baggage he has. All this name ID, he still had so much more well-known than the rest of these folks, more money. Even when like David Gowan dropped out, last month, and he said, "I'm dropping out to make sure we can take out Paul Badbu." That's where everyone was training their fire. It didn't work. There's too many people splitting up the vote, and he won pretty comfortably.
Well, he's made immigration a big issue. He was at the Trump rally, again, talking about immigration.
Yes.
He's been on Fox News a lot talking about immigration. He has a national profile on that. Nobody else in the race had that. The thing that's always interesting about that district, and we'll see this play out in the general against O'Halloran, is he's from Pinal County. That's the southern part of the district. The rest of the district, which is kind of has dominated in the past is up in northern Arizona and Flagstaff. Babiou was able to overcome that because he got Pinal votes, but that's not a big cohesive voting block down there like you think of places like Flagstaff and Prescott in northern Arizona. So I think he has to overcome that in the general, and he did in the primary.
Ken Bennett didn't do all that well in this one. Didn't even finish in the top 3. He's had a rough go of it the last few times he's tried to run for big camp. What's going on with Ken Bennett? Is he just
that one, every time I thought of that race, I forgot that he was running. So I don't know if he was out there in any big sort of way. He might not have had enough money to mount a real campaign here. But Babiou is always the front runner. He never attacked. He didn't want to go, or
Right.
Bennett never attacked. He never wanted to go negative. This would have been a time that maybe going negative would have worked. There's a lot of baggage there.
And speaking of baggage, I'm sure O'Halloran will use that baggage. On the Democratic side of Congressional District 1, O'Halloran wins, and he is now poised to face Babiou in the general. I imagine the money is going to pour into that race.
Oh, absolutely. I think this will be, in terms of money, especially outside money spent, this will be the biggest congressional race in Arizona, not counting the Senate race. Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, they've already reserved a bunch of airtime for the general election. I'm sure the NRCC, the Republican counterpart, they'll probably do the same. This is a big pickup opportunity for them, but a big hold for the Democrats. They've got to hold, they're always in the minority in the House. They've got to try to hold on to what they've got, and that's one of the big ones.
So there were some interesting things about his primary, though. I mean, his opponent didn't even file campaign finance reports, didn't even raise any money, yet still managed to get like more than 40%
Yes.
of the vote. That to me wasn't a great sign. And both of those candidates, too, O'Halloran used to be a Republican. I think Olivas was a Democrat, then a Republican, then a Democrat. That one, I just wonder if those were the best people for potentially keeping
that's a
that.
good point. I mean, why were there only 2 folks? I mean, we had everyone and their brother in some of these other Republican primaries. Only 2 people in this Democratic primary
you have some folks
to succeed a Democrat.
Yeah, you have some local officials up there in Flagstaff, Coconino County that could have run. You have people in the Navajo Nation. But this is a problem with the Democrats across the state. They have a really weak bench. They can't seem to get people to run for these things. O'Halloran will have to overcome being a turncoat in political parlance. He'll have to overcome that. He has the advantage of maybe being from up there, up in northern Arizona. Babiou talked about on election night, talking about coal-fired plants. The Navajo generating station up there is a huge issue on whether that's going to stay open. It's a big job creator. It's also one of the biggest polluters in the whole continent. And so that'll be a big issue. And I think you'll see Babiou be hooked to the Trump wagon. If Trump falters,
yes.
he'll do bad. If Trump ascends, he'll do better. He's already talking about a lot about Trump and a lot about immigration. That's going to be the center of that race.
Immigration, I think, is going to be Babiou's calling, as it always seems to be. Down in Tucson area, parts south, Matt Hines and the Democrats. Looks like he is going to face Martha McSally. Again, that sounds like a lot of money going to go into that race.
That could be, but I think we've already seen in the last few months kind of the DCCC kind of downgrading the probability of flipping that seat. I mean, Hines, he won pretty handily. He had a lot more money than Steele. Her campaign was kind of plagued with financial problems, didn't have enough money, but McSally, it's like she is a fundraising machine. I think she's raised $5 million plus for less than $1 million for Hines, whose fundraising was actually pretty solid. He had enough to go on TV. She's got more than $2 million left, whereas Hines, I think, as of the last campaign finance report, had about $300,000 in the bank. That's not a lot. I think that much as the Democrats are going to try and hold on to that seat in a very competitive District 1, I think the Republicans are going to do the same thing in District 2. But I don't know if the National Democrats have as much interest in competing for that unless they see that Hines is really making a dent.
I think you'll see that be one of those last-minute pushes. If Democrats are doing well statewide or nationally, again, back to the presidential race, if they see some chances there, it's going to be their year. There's a groundswell. They both have good personal stories. He's a doctor. She was in the military. She's a great fundraiser. They're both young. I think you could see the Democrats put money into that late, but only late. They'll wait and see how the tea leaves kind of pan out.
All right, Corporation Commission, Rachel, we got 3 open seats here. The 2 Democrats didn't have to have a primary, so they're still there. But the Republicans, of course, were all over each other, and we've got winners, and Bob Burns, top vote getter.
That wasn't very surprising considering the amount of money spent on his race. It was $667,000, I believe, from Solar City. That's more than everybody else raised combined, pretty much, on both sides. So, yeah, he had way more recognition in that than anyone else did. Tobin taking second, it wasn't that surprising as well. That third place to me was always really open, and Dunn coming in was a bit of a sleeper. I didn't necessarily see that coming. So it was pretty close to those last 3, though.
The anti-APS sentiment, the argument against APS and dark money, Did Burns ride this? Would he have won anyway? I mean, how much of a factor was that in this race?
When I talked to him about it, he's like, well, I don't know. You never know, right? Well, I guess we don't know. But definitely it played a role. He's the only one leading this charge at this time, only Republican leading this charge, and it seems to be resonating with a good amount of Republican voters.
And probably the most important thing about this race is, unlike 2 years ago when we saw, all this dark money who no one knew quite sure where it was coming from, but everyone knew it was coming from APS. You saw none of that this year, and of course APS is under federal investigation, which probably makes them a little hesitant to jump back into the fray. So the only people spending this outside money were the solar people, and they spent a ton of it. And I think the big question is going to be, are they going to keep doing that in the general election? And if they do, is it just going to be for Burns? Are they going to support the Democrats who are also anti-APS?
Bill Mundell and Tom Chabin, Democrats, they're going to be in this fight now with the other three.
I think Burns, the solar money helped Burns be the top vote getter. I think he probably might have still got in there, but I think that added to his total. It'd be interesting what Democrats do. If there'll be money behind them, do you single shot it and vote for one of them and focus on that, or you vote for both? Where the solar money goes, where APS and its folks go on this.
All right, we will see about that one. Joe Arpaio, Jeremy, wins again and wins big again, but these are the hors d'oeuvres. I mean, he has got a tough race ahead of him, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, I think this is, kind of like the McCain, Kelly Ward, and Kirkpatrick. Everyone was just looking ahead to the general election. You had Dan Sabin, who's run against Arpaio a couple of times before as a Republican, as a Democrat, now as a Republican again. Very, not a very spirited campaign. We didn't see, outside of some signs on the corners, we didn't see a lot out of him. Arpaio just demolished him in the primary. But Penzone, this is a serious race here. He lost by about 6 points, I think, 6 years ago, with a third guy in the candidate who took almost 6 points. Things have just gotten worse for Arpaio since then. He's facing possible criminal contempt charges. I think a lot of Democrats smell blood in the water in a way they didn't 4 years ago.
This is a big turnout model type race. If you can get Latinos or young people, millennials, to turn out, Arpaio could be in trouble. If these Trump people turn out in numbers, big numbers, people who haven't turned out before, that helps Joe. He's going to raise a lot of money. He sent out a fundraising letter right after the contempt referral from Judge Snow saying they're after me. He's out there with Trump. He's on Fox News talking about the presidential campaign, again, talking about immigration. He's going to have a ton of money, but it's going to come down to whether people who have voted for him in the past or been neutral come out and vote against him.
A vote for Arpaio almost seems like it would be a protest vote. You ignore everything. It's just a protest. It's us against the world.
Possibly. I mean, if potential criminal contempt doesn't bring down Arpaio, what does? I mean, this is definitely the biggest opportunity that they've had. And yes, Arpaio, incredible fundraiser. I think he has like 11 million right now. There's no way on the Dem side that they're going to be able to meet that. But if they are effective in tying him to all these, court maneuverings, then hopefully that will be their way in. I think they're thinking, but you never know. I mean, it's Arpaio, right? He's known pretty much across the country. He has incredible name ID. So.
All right, we'll see how that one matches up. Finally, as far as races are concerned, the county recorder's race, as tight as you possibly could be. When we were here on election night, we were thinking the voters were paying attention. It looks like they may have voted Helen Purcell out after all the problems in March with the presidential preference election. Maybe they didn't vote Helen Purcell out.
Yeah, it looked like she was on the brink for a couple days. Late yesterday afternoon, we saw the latest updated vote count results, and as opposed to being down by 300 plus votes as she had been, up by 300 plus votes. I don't know. We haven't seen the new results from today, but yeah, that was shocking. I mean, considering the horrible press that she got for this gigantic blunder from the presidential primary, these 4-hour lines, people were just outraged, furious. And here was this guy, Aaron Flannery, who, he jumped in, a year and a half before that, just said, hey, she's never faced a primary before. She's had some other issues that weren't quite as big as the presidential race, but she'd had problems before. He seemed there to kind of reap the benefits. Razor thin. He looks like he's probably going to get knocked out by.
I think in the primary, it didn't help her that she said she wasn't going to enforce the Republican passed election rules aimed at voter fraud, which a lot of conservatives really think is out there. That's debatable. But she said she wasn't going to enforce that. And I think that annoyed a lot of Republicans. I don't think she's out of the wood in the general election. I think there's a lot of people that voted for Bernie Sanders. There's a lot of folks out there that are disenchanted with the process. They think it's rigged. And they're going to see her name, and they remember her talking about too many people voting to Fox 10 here in that interview. And she's still got to overcome that.
Well, what was interesting to me is this is not typically like a sexy race in any figment of the imagination, but if you waited in line for 6 hours, you certainly care about whoever made you wait in line for 6 hours. And I think a lot of people, it wasn't a vote for Aaron Flannery, it was just a vote against Purcell. So I wonder how many of those we'll see in the general.
Jared, I think that's what the Democrats are hoping for in November. I think they were terrified when it looked like Flannery was going to win. Now they get what they wanted, which is Purcell.
I was going to say, as far as the Democrats are concerned, I mean, you have to wonder if in a race that they probably thought they never had a chance in for years with Helen Purcell there, they got a chance.
Sure, they never even run someone for that
Exactly.
race. And the day after the presidential primary, this guy
Well, one thing
Fontes
that's going to be on
filed.
string is how much ticket splitting we're going to see. Are these people voting for Trump? Are they going to vote for John McCain? Maybe not. Are they going to vote Helen Purcell? And reverse, are some of the people turning out against Donald Trump, maybe against Joe Arpaio? How are they going to vote? Are they even going to vote in some of these down ticket races?
Yes or no? Very quickly. We've only got a few seconds left. Did Trump's appearance in Phoenix change anyone's mind?
I can't imagine so.
Mike, what do you
I think it brought a few more Republicans, conservative Republicans, on board. You had Ducey there, you had the sheriff, you had Babu, you had DeWitt. I think it did bring a few more Republicans back in the fold.
I'm with Jeremy. If you have an opinion on him, it's been formed already.
Yeah, okay. All right, good stuff. Thank you, guys. Busy week. Good to have you all here. Monday on Arizona Horizon, a profile of the Grammy Award-winning Phoenix Chorale, and we'll see how a 90-year-old artist turns everyday objects into statements about racism, religion, and more. That's Monday, 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
And welcome, I'm Jason Myers along with Deborah Ostreicher. And Deb, there really isn't a program like Arizona Horizon anywhere in the Arizona media scene.
No, there's not. For you to be able to see these in-depth interviews like this, like the ones that Ted Simons delivers to you every single time on Arizona Horizon, that's not something that you're going to get on any other program.
It's true. What I love about Arizona Horizon is the people that Ted has on. He's really got his finger on the pulse of Arizona politics and issues, and from the governor to the sheriff to all the local figures here in Arizona, even some of the figures that aren't as well known.
That's right. And during the challenging times like we face now, a show like Horizon tackles the issues that are important to all of us. So call one of the numbers on your screen right now to show your support, because tonight we have a new and exciting way for you to support the station. Right now, we want to encourage you to become a sustaining monthly donor to 8. Becoming a sustaining monthly donor is simple. Just try it right now.
That's right, Deborah. A sustaining monthly donation is one that once you set it up, you determine the amount of your monthly donation. Now, let's just say it's $5 per month, and it's deducted every month from your credit or debit card or your checking account.
That's all there is to it. Each month, automatically that amount is deducted from your account, which allows you to sit back and enjoy all the great programs you love here on 8. It's an ongoing contribution that will continue until you tell us to stop, or perhaps you will want to increase your contribution. Whatever may be the case, that's what we ask you to do.
The programs like Arizona Horizon, all the children's programming you've come to love. Sustaining monthly donors are a safe and easy way to support 8. And as an extra incentive tonight, when you become a sustaining monthly donor at $5 per month, we'll send you this wonderful Arizona Horizon Cobalt mug as our way of saying thank you.
And of course, we also welcome one-time contributions. And tonight, when you make a one-time contribution of $75, we'll send you the mug with our thanks as well. Whatever method you choose, please support this local public affairs program and the station that brings it to you 5 days a week.
It's really simple. Just call the number on your screen right now. And remember, the local programs you count on really do count on you. Thank you.
8 delivers all Arizonans every day free access to quality content. As the last locally owned media service in Arizona, 8 delivers on our mission to educate children and provide quality programming to Arizonans of all ages and all walks of life. But Arizona PBS is not a business. This is a locally owned media service supported by individual contributions. 85% of 8's direct operating revenue comes from you, the Arizona community. The money we raise stays right here in Arizona with this station. 8 depends on you just as much as you depend on it. From Yuma to the Grand Canyon, Show Low to Phoenix, and all places in between, this is the last media service that truly belongs to you. You live in Arizona. Isn't it time you became a financial supporter of your local public television station? Help 8 deliver more of the best in the year to come. Thank you.
For more than 25 years, Arizona Horizon has been an integral part of our daily broadcast schedule. And thanks to 8 and Arizona Horizon, you and I have had complete coverage of all the big stories affecting Arizona.
It's true, just in the last few months, Arizona Horizon has brought you election coverage, both sides of political debates, state and local budget issues, and dialogue when it comes to education and healthcare. Basically, Arizona Horizon covers it all: consumer affairs, political analysis, the environment, health, and business.
Arizona Horizon has consistently provided unprecedented, insightful public affairs programming. That's why we want you to call us right now. We know you value this program, and that's why you're watching. But we need more than your viewership. We need your donations.
We do, and as you can see on your screen right now, 8 relies on your support now more than ever. More than 85% of 8's direct operating revenue comes from the Arizona community, people just like you and me. So please, go to your phone and call one of the numbers on your screen. Become an 8 supporter right now.
Great friendships? Click instantly. Just go to azpbs.org/gift and begin or renew your 8 membership on our secure website. You can join online. There, choose a thank you gift from a wide selection of 8 programs, special offers, or member benefits. Get all the details about the gifts you're interested in, select your favorite, and make your contribution. That's all there is to it. Your friendship with 8 clicks instantly. Then enjoy your gift and another year of fantastic programs you make possible here on 8.
Well, we're about ready to wrap things up and take you to another great program here on 8.
And for those of you who've called in your support for Arizona Horizon, a big